Emma Carver was the kind of person everyone in Pine Valley adored, an inspiring teacher, a devoted friend, and a calming presence in the small, picturesque town. Thomas Lang was the opposite, a powerful businessman with a polished reputation that masked a far darker reality. When Emma vanished one cold November evening, leaving her car abandoned by a hiking trail, their seemingly unconnected lives collided in a way no one could have anticipated, unraveling a chilling tale of betrayal, revenge, and survival that would shock an entire nation. Pine Valley, a serene and picturesque town nestled in the heart of British Columbia, prided itself on its tranquil existence. It was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors, where doors were left unlocked and life followed a predictable rhythm. That rhythm was shattered on a cold November evening when Emma Carver, a beloved high school art teacher, vanished without a trace. Emma was known for her warmth and creativity, inspiring her students with her passion for painting and her knack for turning even the dullest school projects into something extraordinary. She was reliable to a fault, always the first to arrive at work and the last to leave. When she failed to show up for a parent-teacher conference one Friday evening, her colleagues were surprised, but not immediately alarmed. They assumed she had forgotten or perhaps taken ill. However, as the hours ticked by and no one heard from her, worry began to creep in. By the next morning, Emma's absence was no longer something that could be brushed off as a simple oversight. Her closest friend, Megan, who lived just a few streets away, called the police. It was unlike Emma not to answer her phone or return messages. She hadn't been active on social media, and her house appeared undisturbed. The only clue was her car, discovered abandoned near a hiking trail on the outskirts of town. The trail was a place Emma frequented. She often spoke about finding solace in the woods, drawing inspiration from the vibrant hues of the changing seasons. Her car was parked neatly in the lot, with no signs of a struggle. Inside, investigators found her purse, phone, and a coffee cup sitting in the cup holder, the contents still lukewarm. It was as if she had simply stepped out for a moment and vanished into thin air. As the police combed through the area, the community rallied to assist. Dozens of volunteers scoured the dense forest surrounding the trail, calling her name and searching for any sign of her. The terrain was challenging, filled with steep ravines and thick underbrush that made progress slow and painstaking. Despite their best efforts, the search turned up nothing. Emma's disappearance quickly became the talk of Pine Valley. The local news picked up the story, and soon her face was plastered on flyers across the province. Theories began to circulate. Had she gotten lost, fallen, or perhaps encountered someone with ill intentions? Yet there was no evidence to support any of these scenarios. The lack of clues was both baffling and chilling. As days turned into weeks, the once hopeful tone of the search began to wane. Candlelight vigils were held, and her students created murals in her honor, but the absence of answers cast a shadow over the town. For the first time, Pine Valley felt less like a safe haven and more like a place where the unthinkable could happen. Emma's disappearance was more than a mystery. It was a fracture in the heart of a community that had never known fear. 3 weeks after Emma Carver's disappearance, the town of Pine Valley remained on edge. The extensive search efforts and police investigation seemed to yield little progress, and many feared the worst. Then, a small breakthrough reignited hope. A volunteer search team combing a remote area near the hiking trail discovered something seemingly insignificant but deeply unsettling: a scarf. The scarf was entangled in the branches of a low-hanging tree at the edge of a steep ravine. It was identified as the one Emma had been wearing the day she vanished. The sight of it sent a chill through the searchers. How had it ended up there? The location was far from the well-trodden paths Emma typically walked, and reaching it required traversing rugged terrain. Close to the scarf, investigators discovered another clue: a single muddy boot print. The print was unusual, as it didn't match the soles of any of Emma's footwear. This discovery added a layer of complexity to the case. If Emma hadn't ventured into the area alone, who had been with her? Was it someone who meant her harm, or had she been accompanied by someone trying to help? The area around the ravine was thoroughly searched, but no additional evidence was found. The terrain was treacherous, with loose rocks and thick vegetation that made every step perilous. Drones and cadaver dogs were brought in to scour the region, but the dense forest yielded no further signs of Emma. Despite the promising find, the mystery deepened. Just as the investigation seemed to stall again, an unusual discovery changed the trajectory of the case. A local farmer, fishing in the river several miles downstream from the hiking trail, retrieved a plastic bottle from the water. Inside was a handwritten note. The message was brief but haunting. "I didn't want to, but I had no choice. Forgive me." The note was written on a torn piece of paper, and handwriting analysis later confirmed it matched Emma's. The discovery of the note raised a cascade of questions. Was Emma alive and trying to communicate? Had she written the message under duress? And what did she mean by saying she had no choice? The bottle and note became the centerpiece of the investigation, but they also brought confusion. The discovery suggested that Emma had been alive at least for some time after her disappearance, but her whereabouts remained unknown. The river itself became a focus, with search teams following its winding path, hoping for further clues. The note divided the public. Some believed Emma had staged her disappearance, possibly to escape a troubled life no one knew about. Others were convinced she had been coerced into writing it, perhaps by someone holding her captive. The uncertainty fueled rampant speculation, and media coverage exploded. Emma Carver was no longer just a missing person. She was the center of a mystery that captivated the nation. Despite the renewed interest in the case, the police were no closer to finding Emma. The scarf, the boot print, and the note painted a fragmented picture, leaving everyone to wonder what had really happened in those woods. The discovery of Emma Carver's note launched the investigation into a new phase. It was clear that something far more complex was at play than anyone had initially imagined. The cryptic message suggested she was alive for at least some time after her disappearance, and the mention of having no choice hinted at coercion. With no physical leads left in the area where her scarf and the boot print were found, the police turned to Emma's life for answers. At first glance, Emma seemed like the last person to have secrets. She was well-liked, dedicated to her students, and active in the community. But as investigators delved deeper into her personal life, they discovered discrepancies that hinted at an unseen side of her world. Her financial records revealed unusual transactions, including large cash withdrawals over the months leading up to her disappearance. These withdrawals didn't align with her modest lifestyle or known expenses. The breakthrough came when detectives examined Emma's online activities. She had been using an encrypted email service to correspond with someone under the alias Shadowlight. The messages between Emma and this person were sparse, but they carried an ominous undertone. One message, sent just days before her disappearance, read, "I've done what you asked. I need this to be over." Another message from the other party replied, "One last step. After that, we're done." The emails pointed to something troubling, but their meaning was unclear. Police were able to trace the alias Shadowlight to a man named Victor Hale, a reclusive artist living off the grid in a remote part of British Columbia. Victor was known for his eccentric behavior and had a small but loyal following for his surreal, haunting paintings. When questioned, Victor claimed he had never met Emma in person, but admitted they had been corresponding online for months. According to Victor, Emma had first contacted him through an online art forum, initially seeking advice on incorporating dark themes into her work. Their conversations, however, soon veered into more personal territory. Emma had confided in him about being in serious trouble, though she refused to give details. Victor insisted he had no involvement in her disappearance, but the police weren't convinced. A search of Victor's cabin yielded no physical evidence linking him to Emma's case, but investigators uncovered several paintings that raised eyebrows. One depicted a woman resembling Emma, standing at the edge of a cliff, her face obscured by shadows. Another showed a pair of boots, eerily similar to the print found near Emma's scarf, stepping into a river. When asked about the artwork, Victor claimed it was purely symbolic and had no connection to real events. Despite Victor's denials, the police remained suspicious. Meanwhile, the revelation of the emails and Victor's connection to Emma leaked to the media, fueling public speculation. The story took on a life of its own, with theories ranging from Emma being part of an underground art conspiracy to her involvement in a dangerous debt scheme. With no concrete evidence tying Victor to Emma's disappearance, the investigation reached an impasse. The pieces of the puzzle, Emma's financial withdrawals, the emails, and Victor's cryptic paintings, seemed connected but refused to fit together. As winter descended on Pine Valley, the case grew colder, leaving everyone to wonder if Emma's secrets would ever fully come to light. As weeks turned into months, the trail in Emma Carver's case grew colder. The media attention began to wane, and the town of Pine Valley tried to return to some semblance of normalcy. Yet, for the investigators and Emma's loved ones, the case remained an open wound. Then, in a surprising turn of events, a tip from an anonymous caller breathed new life into the investigation. The caller directed authorities to a remote property near Victor Hale's cabin, deep in the dense forests of British Columbia. The property, abandoned for years, was known to locals as a place where transient workers occasionally camped. Police arrived with search warrants and forensic teams, hoping for a breakthrough. What they found was both horrifying and perplexing. Buried in a shallow grave near the edge of the property were human remains. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. Initially, many assumed the remains belonged to Emma, but forensic analysis quickly revealed otherwise. The body was that of a woman who had been missing for over 6 years, a case long presumed unsolvable. Her identity was confirmed as Laura Winters, a drifter who had vanished under similar mysterious circumstances while traveling through the area. The connection between Laura Winters and Emma Carver was unclear, but the proximity of the grave to Victor Hale's cabin raised suspicions once again. Victor denied any knowledge of Laura's death, claiming he had only moved to the area a year prior and had no connection to the previous property owners. Despite the lack of direct evidence tying him to either case, the timing and location seemed too coincidental to ignore. Investigators began to explore the possibility that the same individual responsible for Laura's death might have been involved in Emma's disappearance. They broadened their search, combing the surrounding woods and old structures for additional evidence. It was during this renewed effort that another clue emerged, a fragment of a leather boot, partially buried near a creek. The boot fragment was sent for analysis and was determined to match the unique style of the boot print found near Emma's scarf weeks earlier. The discovery seemed to confirm that the person who had been near Emma's scarf had also been near the grave of Laura Winters. The connection between the two women was tenuous but undeniable, leading investigators to a chilling conclusion: someone in the area had a history of preying on women. The breakthrough came when police traced the purchase of the boots to a small outdoor store in Calgary. Surveillance footage from the store showed a man buying the boots 2 days before Emma's disappearance. The man was identified as Daniel Reed, a transient laborer with a criminal record. Reed had a history of theft and assault, but no prior charges for violent crimes. Reed was located at a homeless shelter in Vancouver and taken into custody. During questioning, he initially denied any involvement with Emma, but eventually admitted to being in Pine Valley at the time of her disappearance. He confessed to being hired by an unnamed individual to escort Emma to a remote location. This revelation added yet another layer to the mystery, raising questions about who had orchestrated Emma's disappearance and why. The discovery of Laura Winters' grave, the boot fragment, and Daniel Reed's confession painted a chilling picture, but it still didn't explain Emma's fate. Investigators were left grappling with the horrifying possibility that her disappearance was part of a broader, more sinister pattern. As the search continued, the case grew darker, the answers more elusive, and the stakes higher than ever. Daniel Reed's confession added a new layer of complexity to Emma Carver's disappearance. His claim that he had been hired to escort her to a remote location suggested that her ordeal was far from random. Yet, despite hours of questioning, Reed refused to name the individual who had hired him. He maintained that he had left Emma alive and unharmed, but his evasive answers left investigators skeptical. With Reed in custody, police focused their efforts on retracing his movements around the time of Emma's disappearance. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and forensic evidence painted a chilling timeline. Reed had been seen near the hiking trail where Emma's car was found, and his boot print was definitively matched to the one near her scarf. However, his involvement appeared to be that of a middleman, someone carrying out orders rather than orchestrating the crime. As the investigation continued, a retired detective named Alan Grayson, who had been following the case closely, noticed an unsettling parallel between Emma's disappearance and an incident from nearly a decade earlier. In that case, a young woman in Alberta had been abducted under similar circumstances, coerced into silence due to a past she had desperately tried to keep hidden. That case had gone cold, but Grayson suspected a connection. Police revisited Emma's background with this new perspective. Digging deeper into her past, they uncovered a secret she had managed to conceal for years. As a young woman, Emma had been involved in a tragic accident that resulted in the death of a pedestrian. Although the incident had been ruled accidental, Emma and a close friend who had been in the car with her had covered up key details, including her culpability. The accident had haunted her, but she believed it was long buried. The investigation soon uncovered a shocking link. The unnamed individual who had hired Reed to escort Emma was none other than Thomas Lang, a respected businessman and philanthropist in Pine Valley. Lang's name had surfaced in connection with the accident years earlier. He had been related to the victim and had quietly harbored a grudge against Emma. Publicly, he was seen as a model citizen, but privately, he had spent years plotting his revenge. Reed's confession, combined with mounting evidence against Lang, led police to a remote, abandoned mine deep in the forest. Lang had used the location to keep Emma hidden, ensuring her disappearance remained a mystery while he decided her fate. When authorities finally reached the mine, they found Emma alive but weak, having endured weeks of captivity. Emma's rescue shocked the nation. The story of her survival and the unveiling of Lang's vengeful plot captivated the public. Lang was arrested and charged with a slew of crimes, his carefully constructed facade shattered. Reed, who had played a minor role in the scheme, cooperated with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. Emma's ordeal brought an end to one of Canada's most baffling cases, but it also left deep scars. While she was grateful to be alive, the revelations about her past and the betrayal of someone she once trusted would take years to come to terms with. Pine Valley, too, was forever changed, its once idyllic reputation marred by the darkness that had lurked beneath the surface.